So you have a great panel here, and I'm going to keep my comments relatively brief. I think you're going to hear a lot of good advice, but the best advice is probably you just need to practice and get feedback on what you're saying and practice some more. A couple of things I would say. First of all, the elevator pitch is it's an art, not a science. There isn't a wrong way to do it. There are just better ways and less good ways. And as you do it over and over again, you'll find different ways to describe what you're doing that start to click more for you. Just pay attention to when people say, "Wow, that sounds really interesting," and you think, "Well, what did I say?" Right? And go back over that and remember that and try to use that more. And if people are saying, kind of, "Tell me again, what is it you're doing?" Then you know that it's not working. So a big part of this is just listening and just trying again and adjusting the pitch. Another thing to remember is that this is a two-way street. The reason why somebody is listening to your elevator pitch is because they're interested in supporting you. They want to help. They're looking for things to be involved with. This is a little bit like classic dating advice, right? The sort of, the classic, how do I get a date, right? You're thinking, what should I say or what should I do? Well, the other side ought to be interested too, or else there isn't really going to work, right? So remember, this is a two-way street, and really what you're trying to do is establish a rapport and see if there's a connection with this person. If there is, then it may go on to great things. If there isn't, it's okay. Maybe you just learned that the person you're talking to isn't the right person to work with you on this idea, and that's okay too. And the fact that your elevator pitch may only be a 30-second or a 60-second interaction is a really good thing for you too, because you don't want to spend your time with people who aren't interested in your idea or aren't the people who can help you with what you're going to do. And it's hard to know up front. You can't just read somebody's bio and know whether they're really going to be the perfect person to help you with something. So remember, it's a two-way street, and that they ought to be really interested too. So it's not all on you. With having said that, and I don't know all the things that you guys are going to say, so I hope I don't step on some of the things that you're going to say. But I have a few things that I like to see when somebody pitches me. One of the things I do, I spend a day a week with a venture capital fund, and we do about once a month write a check of $1 million or so to somebody to help them grow a business. And so we get a lot of pitches. And some of them are really great, and really we respond to them, and it's exciting, and some of them we sort of say, oh, we didn't quite get that. And so it helps us when you organize your pitches in a way that allow us quickly to figure out, is this something that we can help with, that we'd be interested in, or isn't. And there are three qualities that I particularly am interested in a pitch. I want there to be a piece of what you say which establishes your credibility. They're all itties, okay, so this is the credibility. And if you tell me that you have invented a cure to cancer, that inherently seems like a really interesting thing. But what you may not realize is that for those people who are in a position to, for instance, invest or in other ways significantly help startups, they get a lot of pitches. And they need to somehow separate the ones that really have potential from the ones that sort of on the surface sound good, but they're not really sure if they have potential. And one of the main ways that people do that is by assessing your credibility. And I have a notion of something I call kind of a credibility point. This is a short story which may not even tell exactly what you're doing, but makes it clear that what you're doing is real, that you do have something going for you. This can be almost anything, but I'll give you some examples. So you might say, I have a cure for cancer, and it was just written up in the Journal of Science. That would be a credibility point, right? Because they don't know who you are, they don't even know your name, but they know science. So you've leaned on a credible other brand, in this case, that gives you or what you're doing a lot of credibility. Another thing might be that you went to a school or university that is considered a top one in the field of what you're doing. They might say, oh, okay, you went to MIT and you have a cure for science, for cancer. Well, okay, I'm going to listen to you because it's more likely that it actually might be that. Another one might be that I refer to superlatives. You can offer a superlative and it can be impactful even if it's not, you have Science Magazine or MIT. So you might say, I presented to my daughter's kindergarten class this idea, and it was the most popular idea presented, right? It's a superlative. And even though that sounds almost like, well, what does that mean? It's a kindergarten class. When you're a superlative in almost any pool, people tend to respond to that and say, oh, okay, so what was it? I want to know more about this idea that was the most popular idea presented to the kindergarten class. So find something about which you are exceptional, which is superlative about what you're doing. You might say that you won a contest. You might say that the Boston Globe listed you as one of the top 10 interesting new startups in the Boston area. Something which sort of just gives them a reason to pay more attention. So that's the credibility. Second thing you want to make sure you include that I often see missing is some sense of quantity. My second itty. So often I hear a pitch that says, I'm launching a business that is going to help doctors handle their claims processing better, right? And I say, okay, well that's cool, that sounds helpful, that sounds like a good thing to do. But I need to know something about how big this is. So if you said, for instance, that doctors spend 20% of their time on claims processing, and it costs the average doctor $30,000 a year to do it, and there are 1 million doctors in the country, so it's a $30 billion problem that you're solving. That's adding some quantity to this otherwise sort of interesting but kind of generic description of what you're trying to do. So again, quantity can be almost anything, but it's numbers that give the other side in this 30 or 60 second window that you have some sense of just how big is this thing that we're talking about. And then lastly, you're really trying to make a connection with someone. You're really trying to, your goal is not to get them to decide to invest. Your goal is to get them to decide that they want to have a longer meeting with you. Because no one's ever going to invest in this 30 or 60 second elevator pitch. They're not going to take out their checkbook and say, okay, great, here's $1 million, right? What they're really going to do is say, that's interesting enough that I'd be willing to dedicate maybe an hour of my time to sit down with you and hear more about this. And I might be willing to go out on a limb and get a colleague to come and join me for the meeting with you. That's really what you're going for. So you don't have to get the whole story out. You just have to make this person feel that it's quantity-wise, it's big enough to be interesting, that it's credible. And then the last bit is that they actually want to spend time with you. And so I'm calling this humanity. You want to make yourself human. You want to make yourself interesting. You want to make yourself a person that this investor type just wants to spend that hour with, right? So it could be a funny story. It could be, there's often a founding story that goes along with, with a business. And there's a startup up here in Cambridge Co-working Center that some of you may have seen if you've been through there, that's making bike lights that are like armored, that are really hard to steal, right? And you say, okay, that's kind of cool, I guess that's useful. But they'll tell you the founding story is that they have a friend who had their bike light stolen, and the friend was out somewhere on their bike and had to get home and rode back without a bike light and got in an accident, was seriously hurt. And they say, this made us feel that this is important. We really need to make bike lights that can't be stolen, because it's just a terrible thing that bike lights are stolen. And when I heard this story from these guys, I was like, wow, and this is their friend. They're out there on a crusade because of their friend getting hurt. And that's the humanity part of this. I do want to know what their credibility is. Like, why do I believe you can build a bike light? And I want to know, how big is the market for bike lights? But I want to know why I want to spend time with these guys. And then as soon as I heard that, I was like, wow, these are great guys. I want to spend time with them. So those are my 3 itties, credibility, quantity, and humanity. And that's my suggestion. Thanks.